What up, though? It's your brother Mike X. Welcome to another episode of 17 Winners. This episode a little different because I'm literally just pushing record and hoping for the best, my baby. So y'all bear with me. What up, though? I kind of know what I want to talk about, but also, I don't know, man. It's like a lot going on with me, so because of that, I'm going to freestyle a little bit of this episode. Plus, this like damn near one of my only episodes where I sat down and had a conversation with y'all, just me and y'all. I did it before once talking about CVI, and I kind of had to force that. So I'm taking it and challenging myself to step in front of the camera without the anchor of a guest in order to, one, step into my professionalism at this, right? Because I want to get better. I want to be a professional. And two, I also believe part of what I'm doing is opening pathways, changing narrative, and just making a way for my people who would be in a similar position. And what I mean by that is like formerly incarcerated people, black people who have been impacted. We get out the penitentiary and it is assumed that you either are supposed to be all the way back together, have your shit all the way back together, or you are expected, or you are like shunned or looked down upon because you can't seem to get your shit together, right? And I think I come to stand kind of in the gap between the two because I don't necessarily think it's that cut and dry. As a matter of fact, I know it's not that cut and dry from my personal experience. I know reentry, reassimilating, coming back home into society after being gone for years is a lot more gray area than it is that black and white of am I going to do right or am I going to do wrong? So that said, I decided, like I said, I want to sit in front of the camera. And so part of that, and I go into it a little bit more because I've been working on something at my job at my semi, and I talked to y'all a little bit about that as well. But I've been working on a theory. And the theory at my job is, I guess it's not a theory at my job. Let me change that. The theory that I have been working on that I was able to have space to present through my job is what I call the 8 domains of reentry. Yeah, the 8 domains of reentry. So basically what that means is reentry is not a linear path. And mind you, I'm working out an idea. So I'm working it out before y'all. And mind you, this is also part of, man, I know it feels like I'm rambling, but I want y'all to bear with me because all of these things are part of the reentry journey that I'm articulating and being able to represent in front of y'all that you wouldn't normally be able to have access to. And that is like part of not wanting to be in front of the camera. So because of who I am, what my natural talents are, the way I am, I'm not necessarily afraid to be in front of the camera. Like this doesn't make me nervous to be in front of the camera or nothing like that. At the same time, though, it does feel awkward to just be talking to a camera. People who grew up with their phones, with a camera on them, or people who have been out here and were out here during the transition, and even a lot of those people who I know struggle with the idea of just opening up their phone and talking to their phone or looking at a camera and just talking to a camera. So if you compound that with the fact that one, I come from like a street oriented value system where getting in front of the camera is like the last thing you're supposed to do, and then having that reinforced while inside the penitentiary, coming home and jumping in front of a camera is an accomplishment in and of itself to an extent, because the more that I do this podcast, the more that I move around, the more that I run into other formerly incarcerated people who say, man, I want to start a podcast, man. Man, but I don't know the first thing, or man, I wanted to start a podcast, but I just can't get behind that camera like. And the reality is the beginning of my podcast was mostly audio episodes because I just really didn't feel comfortable getting in front of the camera. So part of me sitting here doing this and going through the articulation of like that uncomfortability and what I've been building on, this is part of me getting out of that shell and building it up. And I also want to be able to show other formerly incarcerated people that they can do this shit. That like, it's really not as difficult as it seems once you get behind and like get the hang of it. And once you start doing it, right, it takes consistency, it takes practice to be good at anything. So that being said, I'm practicing, and I'm practicing with y'all, in front of y'all, so that I can be an example and so that I can get it right, so that I can be on point, right? But yeah, that said, man, I want to start. Can you allow me to reintroduce myself? No. But I do want to start over, right? My name is Brother Mike X. If you have been listening, if you have been following the podcast, 17 Winters, you know it's 17 Winters with your brother Mike X. Taking a step back, though, my name is Michael Taylor. I am the program coordinator at Michigan Collaborative to End Mass Incarceration. It is a statewide collaborative here in Michigan that connects organizations, individuals, and movements across the state to attack mass incarceration at every angle that we can find. We are centered on 4 pillars. That is prevention, which that lines up with anything from CVI to bail reform to police accountability to prosecutor accountability, like anything that happens before and leading up to going to jail or prison. Our second pillar is in length of stay. We do not believe that people should be serving lengthy sentences that do not coincide with essentially what makes sense. There is clear data that says that people age out of crime. Most crime is the result of, financial hardship, essentially the constructs of mass incarceration, which are the isms: capitalism, racism, sexism, not socialism, but the isms, right? So we align with our partners that are battling against lengthy stays as well as conditions. So we are involved in policy as well as processes and that help to reduce the length of stay as well as lighten the conditions for those who are currently serving. Our third pillar is in programming. Programming was a particularly, important place for me during my time inside, because through programming I was able to express some of the ideas and some of the skills development that I wanted to get myself to the point that I am now, right? So one of our third pillar is programming, wherein we work to help to make sure that as many people as possible inside have access to programming, access to quality programming, but also access to the programming that ultimately determines whether or not they are released from prison. In Michigan, there is a law called Truth in Sentencing, and even those who don't necessarily still fit under that law are still held to a standard that they must complete specific programming before they're released. There was a time, and there still is, a reality that everyone that necessarily needs the programming doesn't have access to it, and that there is a somewhat of a bottleneck when it comes to people getting closer to their outdates and the need of the programming versus the capacity to be able to offer it. Also, we believe that if these programs are so detrimental and so important to the progressive transition and essential rehabilitation of people that are currently incarcerated, why would we wait until they have served 3, 4, 5, 10 years in prison before we start allowing them to get inside of these programs? So the third pillar of my semi is advancing programming. We would rather people that need programming be able to have access to programming immediately upon their entrance into incarceration. And then that leads us to the fourth pillar, which is reentry. Reentry as a pillar. So first and foremost, we support the organizations, individuals that are doing the work of reentry that's helping people to make the transition home. But we also offer learning tables and learning communities on all of the pillars, and we have built different collaborative tables specifically around the different pillars, one being reentry. As I alluded to earlier, I have been developing a theory on reentry based on my lived experience and that of those around me, as well as just like my work in the field, my work in being a peers navigator. So I also am a peers navigator at A Brighter Way, the Lansing office, which that office is closing September 1st. So we will no longer even be open as an official office in Lansing September 1st. But during my time there, it's been a year, I've been a peers navigator, which is peer elevated, educated. What is it? Peer educated and elevated reentry specialist. Adam will kill me for not being able to roll that off the top of the head at this point. But hey, man, based on all that has been going on, my brother, can you blame me? But at the same time, though, yeah, the pillar of reentry, I have been also working on this thing called the 8 domains of reentry. I'm not sure that it's going to remain 8 domains. I may bring it down because some of the language is shared. And I'll probably do a whole episode on that. But I just wanted to have this conversation, get this out. People see me wearing a lot of different hats. One day I'm hosting Hood to Hood. The next day I'm moderating a state bar panel. Then I'm interviewing somebody on the podcast. Then I'm talking about prison reform. Then I'm helping somebody find housing. Then I'm working on opening a clothing store. Then a lot of people ask, like, what up with the music? So in general, when my people bump into me, they be asking, like, what do I do, right? And realistically, it's really hard to narrow that down. But I do all of those things, right? I'm the program coordinator of Michigan Collaborative to End Mass Incarceration. I also do reentry work, but I mainly am an entrepreneur, and I'm really just hustling. Part of the hustling is showing my people the way, which is how the work ends up landing into the hustle, because I feel like the work that I do, although I'm blessed to be able to be paid for the work. I've been doing this work since before I could get paid. I was doing this while I was in prison. I've been doing it since I've been out of prison. And really all I'm talking about doing is like letting my feet match my mouth. When I say something, I'm doing it and I'm living by it. And not only am I living by it, but I'm also bringing others along with me. I'm not leaving and stepping. ahead of people. You feel me? So I think that's like the real for real about it. And I got this like what I call a run the show put together for me to talk about some of the shit that I did, but or with some of the shit that I do. But the reality is, I have experienced things. I remember when I was in the penitentiary, I, for the life of me, couldn't understand why I had so much time for the crime. And I do understand, don't get it twisted, that armed robbery is a serious crime. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that my bunkie in quarantine was in quarantine with me for second degree murder. And he only had 12 years to do. I had 16 to 40. So that just didn't make sense to me. Why did I have to do so much time? I believe when I got down to like, I don't know, I think I was in my last like 4 years. This was like 2012 or so. I may have even told this story before on here, but if not, I was in the day room. I was at St. Louis. That was the level 1 part. I'm at St. Louis. I'm in the day room, and I'm watching. They got the TV on, and you know how the TV be just on. Like niggas in the day room, ain't nobody paying attention to the TV. So I'm in the day room, and the TV on, and it was a scene. It was Chicken George talking about getting sold. Well, technically, he was being loaned to another plantation owner for a couple of years in some type of deal. I can't even remember the real case, but I remember him telling his people, like, I'm only gonna be gone 5 years. Y'all, it ain't gonna be that long, this, and that, like, and he was trying to make them feel better about it. And I remembered having a similar conversation with my mom when I went to prison, when I got sentenced. It was like we had a similar conversation about, you know, you can handle it. I'm just gonna be gone a little bit, like and for some reason I just bust out crying. I couldn't even stop myself. Like literally uncontrollable crying. And I cried for like quite some time, to the point where I tried to get on the phone and ask, like, why can't I stop crying? I even called my dad. He couldn't offer me nothing. So eventually, of course, I went and got on my buck and just put my face down. But I say all of that to say, in recent times, some of those things have began to be uncovered for me. And I feel like, so I always have heard about the people being empaths, but I didn't really know what that exactly meant. But now I feel like I get it, to the extent that I feel on a different level affected by mass incarceration than I think most people did. And it stuck with me. And I believe that I'm probably the one to help articulate the reality of it. And that's the reason for me to be here and be doing this podcast. Like, because yeah, podcast is cool. Podcasting is the cool thing to do. That's what everybody want to be, is a podcaster. And of course, you know, there are rewards and all of that. But if I'm being real, I ain't made no real money off of no podcasting, and I had not ever really done anything to make no real money from podcasting. What I just have done it because I felt compelled to do it. Something keeps saying, go do another episode, go give them some more information, go talk to them some more, bring somebody else up, tell another story, spotlight yourself as somebody who beat the odds or is beating the odds. Because part of my idea, my construct on reentry is, you don't get past it because you've been home a number of years. I've been home 11 years, but there are still certain processes, certain developmental things that I'm still having to learn and relearn um, as my mental development and even physical development was stopped for a number of years at the age of 18 when I was arrested. And if I'm being real, it probably that stunting of my development probably started before that, because I've been getting locked up since I was 13. So I'm just more familiar with understanding what happened to me during the process of prison. I haven't even gotten deep into my juvenile history and how that affected me and led towards um, even going to prison and that type of thing. So it's levels to it. And I'm probably talking all over the place, but I don't care. Y'all fuck with me. Y'all been here this long, then y'all probably know the brother is like growing in this thing. So yeah, I don't even know how much I done told y'all about me, how much you know when you turn on the 17 Winners podcast, what you're watching. So that's why I started off and just like told you my name. My name is Michael Taylor, but the name that I carry is Brother Mike X. Neither is a nickname. I want to get that straight. Brother Mike X ain't a nickname. Michael Taylor is also not a name that I necessarily own. If you know that Mike X is a derivative of the Nation of Islam. The X represents the unknown, the process of change. The way I see it, it was the best that Malcolm became before he began his fall. And I feel like the X best represents where I am in my process. The name Taylor, I have still some attachment to, but that's more connected to the direct history, legacy of my family here in Lansing where I live. Not necessarily like a longevity type of thing. I don't think I'm necessarily putting the Taylor name in the history books, but I know that because this is a small city and I made some big ass splashes in a negative way here, part of what feeds my desire to do right and to be the example around here is to redeem the shame that my mama once felt about carrying the Taylor last name. Because I have done some things that really made people look at her as if she was a bad mom, and she wasn't. She was actually a better mom than I've ever seen. Like, I've still to this day ain't seen another woman that even seems like she could be potentially as good of a mom that I had. So it had nothing to do with what she was as a mother. And that's also part of the reason why I am the way that I am when it comes to this CVI work. Because when I'm out here in these streets and I'm looking at social media and shit, the first thing they do when a little young dog get killed or when somebody get in a shootout or something is they get to talking about the parents and how the parents ain't shit. And I keep it 100. Like, I understand we got a terrible generation of parents that grew up with us. Like, the hoes is these niggas' mamas. I get it. At the same time, bro, they making decisions. And there are a whole lot of other things that are factors to the reason why these boys are out here doing what they doing. It ain't necessarily just that they mama ain't no good. Mama might be doing her best. What is daddy doing? Daddy and mama. These days, that I've seen some daddies and mamas that's working hard. But part of that working hard means that they can't be around, and not being around, being absent is part of the problem. And that's not necessarily being bad parents. That's being the best you can be with what you got. And mind you, when we talk about the isms, like the capitalism part, having to make the money to survive and take care of this child sometimes prevents you from having the time to actually be there to raise and take care of this child. Um, and usually we're the ones criminalized for that. So again, like mass incarceration affected and affects me differently. Um, if anything, I feel like the messenger, or um, like just the one through whom the information can come. Some of my people that I've had conversations with on the podcast would not have otherwise been able to say what they were able to say about their experience, because there's no safe place to talk about your prison experience. And even when you look at these other podcasts out here, these other podcasts are, yeah, they might be talking about prison and prison experiences, but they are mostly talking about it trying to glorify being tough in the joint. Like some level of gangster, as if, for one, as if gangster has any motherfucking value. Like, it ain't got no value. Being a gangster don't get you nothing in life, for real. But like, of course they get in the streams, they get in the views, and they might be even more popular than me, but they don't talk this shit with the authenticity that I do. They not as solid as I am. They ain't go through it like I did. The people that I call for my podcast, and I ain't even opened up the interviews yet, for real. I ain't even went and sat in Detroit for a couple of days. I got so much love in Detroit. When I go sit out there, I'm gonna have some conversations with some people that's really moving and shaking what's been going on in the criminal legal realm, right? Like, so for real, all I'm saying is 17 Winners podcast is the podcast that is speaking to the real, for the real, free the real, all of those things. But yeah, where I was at, I can't even remember where I was at in my story. But shit, I'm trying to tell y'all who I am. I'm trying to bring you in a little bit closer, right? And I'm trying to be vulnerable, not vulnerable. That's not the word. The word is not vulnerable. The word is transparent. I'm being transparent because shit, ain't nobody else doing it. Other than Wallow going on, like, doing his thing and like telling us what he be doing, I don't see anybody else directly speaking to some of the challenges of doing this. And when I say doing this, I mean podcasting, and like, you think it's just turning on some cameras and start talking, but that ain't all it is, G. It's like, I have to figure out ideas, figure out conversations that I want to have, reach out to people. I have to be the one to do the promo. I have to do all of the social media. I'm editing the clips. I'm rewatching the episodes to make sure that I got everything that I was supposed to get. And then on top of that, we talking about revenue streams. All of the money that it takes to do everything comes out of my check, which comes out of essentially the mouth of my kids and my wife, and like, and they are making sacrifices for me to be able to do this because they believe in what I'm doing, even though I'm not even sure what the hell I'm doing. If I'm being real, like, I don't know that this is gonna turn into nothing that will actually be able to do anything in this time. A large part of it also is to be able to talk to my sons so that whenever I die, they have a recorded history of me being here. Like, they can go to my podcast and hear me say, I love you, little Michael. I love you, Nuri. They can go back and hear who their daddy was, where I came from. And they don't have to let nobody else tell them. So that is also part of it. There is a selfish reason for me being in front of the camera, which is also part of the reason why I decided to come sit my ass down and talk to the camera and see what comes out, because I just need to start doing this. I need to be able to make sure that my boys get to know who I am. And if none of this shit blow up, if I don't help turn up none of my people, if none of the formerly incarcerated people that watch me are able to do a podcast, um, like if none of that other shit works, if nothing else about this matters, at least my sons will get a chance to know exactly who their dad is. So I can have that conversation, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the opportunity to just do that. Um, so yeah, did I have something else I wanted to tell y'all before I got out of here? I don't know how long it's been. I'm trying to give you a good solid, 40 minutes. You feel me? I was born down yonder. No, yeah, I can tell a little bit about that, I guess, because I ain't got it recorded nowhere else. So I was born in Muskegon, Michigan. Um, I never really lived in Muskegon, Michigan. My mom grew up there before they moved to Lansing when she started high school or something. So when she got pregnant, she went back down there to where my great-grandmother was at the time living, and she had me while staying at my grandmother's house. Shortly after having me, she moved back to Lansing to the south side over there by Everett for, I don't know, maybe a year. I don't even know because I was a baby. Before my great grandmother and most of my family from Muskegon moved out to Dallas, Texas. Um, from there, I grew up in Dallas, Texas. We was in Dallas from, I don't know the years because I just don't feel like doing the math in my head, but I was probably 9 when I left Dallas. 8. I think I was 8 when I left Dallas. I've talked about it, you know, to an extent on here, but you know, my parents ended up having some substance abuse issues, not unlike a lot of black people in the 80s. So I like to always caveat that because I believe that that bookmark is the bookmark to mass incarceration. So I don't like to leave that out. When I like the brother Deontay Kyle from Grits and Eggs, he says if you examine the last 40 years, you will just be able to see. And from my perspective, I agree with that. If you just go back over the last 40 years, from about the time I was 4, you will be able to see a clear path to like what we call now mass incarceration, but really it's just systemic destruction of the black community and purposeful in the last 40 years. Not necessarily even going back as far as like people like to take it back to slavery and deconstruction and all. Like, no, just the last 40 years will give you a clear picture of every other time period where they have done that. So I digress. But yeah, my mom and dad ran into some drug problems. They were trying to get away from the environment where they felt like that was the crutch or whatever. I assume I was a kid, so I don't really know. And they moved to Atlanta. We moved to Atlanta. Shortly after we got to Atlanta, my dad went to prison. And we were in Atlanta by ourselves, my mother, myself, and my baby brother, who was, I don't know, a few months old or so. And my mom was recently kicking a drug habit and trying to get back on her feet and doing it by herself while her husband was incarcerated. At some point, my dad was let out, which this is a blur because, again, I was young. We only lived in Atlanta for about 2 years. I don't necessarily remember seeing him again after he got locked up, but I feel like there was a time where he showed back up while we were in Atlanta. But the next thing I know is we were back in Michigan, and my mom was trying to get on her feet. Atlanta was not favorable for us, so we struggled the entire time in Atlanta. So it made sense to come back to home where my grandmother, my mom's mom, lived, and who would offer the support that it needed for her to get back on her feet and also be far enough away from um, those drug temptations, I assume, that existed in Dallas. Um, by that time, I was about 11 when we first moved here to Lansing. Um, and I had seen too much already by the time we got here. So I personally believe that I felt this city was like too small for me. It was, um, I was already interested in getting in the mix. So, of course, I immediately found friends that were similar to me, that were around here, that were close to me. So when we first moved here, we stayed on the north side. We stayed on 1116 Comfort for, I don't know how long, but I went to Verlinden. And then my mom tried to get us like out the hood and moved us over to Waverly, but the apartments was like still damn near like Section 8, if that was a thing then. Like they was if it was something going on, that was a place where it was going on. And I got to be exposed to some more shit over there. But she she definitely thought when my mama got on her feet, because shout out to my mama, she really grinded. She got back on her feet. We moved up here to Lansing with nothing. I don't remember having anything but like a couple bags, and we slept in the basement. And it wasn't. I don't think it was 6 months before we had an apartment and a car, and she had a good job. And I was 14, 13, 14, about to be 14 or something like that when we moved to the south side. And so we couldn't have been in Lansing no more than about 2 or 3 years before my mom got in a good enough position where she was able to go put a down payment on her first home. And she moved us to where she thought was the good neighborhood, because last time she lived in Lansing, the the northwest side was where like the street shit was at. It wasn't no south side for real. What she didn't know is Coast Light had turned the fuck up. So we moved to Radford, 3309 Radford, and we stayed there from the time we got from like 13 until till a few years after I was in prison. So from like 13 until 18, I was on the south side, and that's where I feel like I jumped off the porch. That's where I feel like I made my name. I did all of my dirt. So going back to what I was saying about the last name thing, like that's the part of the last name that I stay attached to while I'm here in Lansing, because my mama deserves to have a good name that is not tarnished by me. Uh, so, but yeah, so we stayed here. We was on the south side for about 5 years. And if I'm being real, man, I was a terrible criminal. Like, I did some of everything, but I ain't gonna lie, I damn near got caught for some of everything, man. If I didn't get caught, I was hot as hell. Like, I was terrible. And I thought I was good because I got away with a bunch of shit. And like, even when I went to prison for, I was like, well, shit, at least they ain't catch me. You feel me? But man, it's hard to be a good criminal because Nigga, all you gotta do is get caught one time. Like, every day you come out the house, you got to be on point. You got to make sure the police ain't on you. You got to make sure the jack boys ain't on you. You got to make sure. Like, it's so many different variables you got to get through as a street nigga every day. And the police, all they got to do is come out every day and look for you. That's all that nigga job is just come out and look for you. And as long as he's just looking for you, eventually you're going to slip up, because we talking about all day, every day, 365 days. Like, if I told you to say your name 300 times in a row right now, you will probably mess up your name just off the repetition. So imagine you having to be right about every move you make every day. And one person, or not one person, a whole group, a whole motherfucking army of people, all their job is to do is catch you on that one time that you make the mistake in front of them. Like, the odds don't even make sense. But man, I don't know. So yeah, that's who I am. I grew up in Lansing. I grew up in Dallas. When I say I jumped off the porch, like, I always been one that didn't mind traveling. So I used to go out of town. I used to get in the mix. I caught my case in Benton Harbor. Yeah, man. Like I said, we used to do everything. I used to think I was a legendary street nigga because I had done some shit that made newspapers, and I had done some shit that other niggas ain't did and all that. But at this point, I don't even respect legendary street nigga. I don't even know what that means. Like, so I'm just solid. I'm just, I am who I say I am. That's for sure. And other than that, man, y'all stay tapped in. This 17 Winners with your brother Mike X. I'm going to be doing some more of these solo. I'll probably have a better construct on my time. But yeah, I just wanted to sit down and have a conversation and say that I did it. Free to real.